Lagos has a way of swallowing noise and spitting it back out as life. Buses honking, street vendors calling, generators rumbling like restless beasts. But on this particular Harmattan morning at Starlight Heights Academy, all that noise faded into one tiny moment of courage that would change everything. Nobody knew it yet, not even Amina Yusuf, the 15-year-old girl with an oversized backpack and a heart that always seemed to run ahead of her. But destiny had already started moving pieces around her, quietly. Like a chess master planning checkmate. T began with a new student. A quiet boy. A boy everyone called weird before they ever asked his name, and it began with a single decision Amina made. A decision that would one day bring her face to face with a billionaire, a secret about her own family, and an offer that would alter her entire future. But that was later. This is how it started. Amina rushed into the school hallway, her braids bouncing behind her, trying to beat the morning bell. Starlight Heights was one of those aspire to perspire private schools sprinkled across Victoria Island, full of rich kids with richer problems and teachers who expected perfection like it was a lunch requirement. Amina didn't belong here. Not really. Her mother worked 2 jobs just to keep her enrolled, and Amina knew every grade she earned was another thread holding their life together. She wasn't the loudest or the coolest. She simply did her work, stayed out of trouble, and minded her business. But that morning, trouble didn't stay out of hers. Up ahead, she heard it, the laughter, the taunting, the kind that had sharp edges. A group of boys, typical school bullies, surrounded someone near the lockers. Amina slowed her steps. They were shoving a small, skinny boy with thick glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He looked like he was still adjusting to the idea of being in Nigeria, or maybe the idea of Earth in general. His uniform hung awkwardly, like it wasn't sure it belonged on him either. The lead bully, Femi Okonjo, smirked and flicked the boy's glasses. "Welcome to Lagos, new kid. Hope you like rough play." The other boys laughed. Amina felt the familiar spark, annoyance mixed with moral outrage. She didn't like bullies. She didn't like injustice. And she really didn't like the way the boy's eyes looked, small, embarrassed, and quietly desperate. She didn't plan to step in. She just found herself walking toward them. "Enough," she said, her voice steady. "Leave him alone." Femi turned. "Amina, mind your business." "I am," she said. "Bullying isn't allowed here." "Who are you? Head girl?" He sneered. "No," she said. "Just someone with sense." The hallway went quiet. Femi stepped closer, trying to intimidate her. But Amina didn't flinch. She didn't know where her courage came from. Maybe from her mother's voice in her head saying always stand on the truth, even if you stand alone. Femi clicked his tongue, annoyed. "Let's go," he muttered to his crew. They left, and the hallway returned to its usual hum. Amina turned to the boy. "You okay?" He nodded shyly. "Yes, thank you." "What's your name?" "Tari Okari," he said. I'm new, obviously." She laughed softly. "Don't worry, it gets better. Stay close to the library. Bullies hate books." He smiled for the first time, a small, hopeful smile. Amina didn't know it then, but that smile was the beginning of everything. The scholarship, the mentorship, the opportunities she never imagined, and the secret about Tari's father. A secret that would shake the entire school. But for now, Tari just pushed his glasses up and said, "You're very kind. People don't usually talk to me." "Well," she shrugged, "I'm not people." They walked to class together and the day moved on. But destiny had already taken note. A tea lunch. Tari sat alone until Amina waved him over. She introduced him to her best friend Kunal Adebanjo, a jokester with a big voice and an even bigger appetite. They spent the break laughing, sharing puff puff, and dismissing Femi's dirty looks from across the cafeteria. It felt normal, simple, but even normal moments can be stepping stones to extraordinary ones. Later that afternoon, the school principal made a surprise announcement over the intercom. "Students and staff, please be informed that our school's major benefactor will be visiting next week. All students must be on their best behavior." The hallways erupted with chatter. Amina barely paid attention. Benefactors didn't affect people like her, But it affected Tari, because as soon as the announcement ended, she noticed him freeze. He went pale, as if he recognized the voice, the name, or something, and said in the message, "You okay?" Amina asked again. Tari hesitated. Yes, just surprised. She didn't push. Everyone had their secrets. She had no idea his secret would eventually rewrite her life. That afternoon, as students were packing up, Tari approached her. "Thank you again for today," he said softly. "I know you didn't have to. It was nothing," she said. "No," Tari insisted. "It meant something." Before she could respond, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside the gate. A driver stepped out, scanning the area like security detail. The man called out, "Young master, we need to go." "Young master," Amina blinked. Colonel whispered, "Guy, who be this boy?" Tari gave Amina a small, apologetic smile. "I'll see you tomorrow." He climbed into the SUV. The car drove off, and Amina realized this wasn't an ordinary new kid. Something bigger was at play. Much bigger, and she had just stepped right into the story. If you were Amina, would you have stepped into that bullying situation, even if it meant getting on the bad side of the school's biggest troublemaker?
Hey there, my wonderful family and friends. Welcome back. If you're ready to dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I love seeing where everyone's watching. And guess what? There's another amazing story coming your way tomorrow. One you definitely don't want to miss. Alright then, let's get started.
The next week arrived faster than Lagos traffic on a good day, meaning it arrived fast, loud, and with a little chaos. Starlight Heights Academy buzzed with an energy Amina had never seen before. Even the teachers were acting like someone sprinkled sense into their morning tea. Everyone wanted to impress the mysterious benefactor coming to visit, except Amina. She was more focused on figuring out who Tari really was. For the past few days, he'd been quieter than usual. He sat with her and Kunal, answered questions in class, laughed at jokes, but there was something behind his eyes. Something heavy, like he was carrying a secret wrapped in padlocks. That morning, he walked into class wearing a neatly ironed uniform that didn't hang awkwardly anymore. His hair was trimmed. His shoes were polished. He looked prepared. For what? Amina didn't know, but she intended to find out. "Guy," Kunal whispered, leaning in, "your boy days shine today, oh. What's happening?" Tari only gave a shy smile. "It's nothing." Amina raised an eyebrow. She didn't believe him. By noon, the entire school had gathered in the assembly hall, a huge space with high ceilings, golden drapes, and a stage that made speeches feel like political campaigns. The whispers were loud enough to pass for a stadium crowd. "Who do you think is coming? Is it that tech billionaire from Lekki? I heard it's the man that owns that 5-star hotel on the island. Maybe it's a senator." Everyone had theories. Everyone except Tari, who sat still, facial expression unreadable. Then the doors opened. A group of security officers entered first. The hall went silent. Behind them walked a tall man in a navy blue agbada so crisp it looked ironed with divine assistance. His shoes shone like they had never touched ordinary ground. His presence shifted the air, calm, powerful, and used to being respected, and he looked exactly like an older version of Tari. Amina felt her breath catch. Kunal muttered, "Jesus is Lord." The principal rushed to the microphone with the energy of someone about to faint from excitement. "Students, staff, it is my honor to welcome Chief Damien Okari, the primary owner and benefactor of Starlight Heights Academy." Gasps rippled across the hall. "Owner of the school?" Amina turned slowly toward Tari. So this was what he meant by being surprised. The kid she defended from bullies, the kid sitting beside her every day, his father owned the school. Tari kept his head down. The principal continued with a long speech that felt like it lasted a whole presidential term. Chief Okari eventually walked to the microphone, his voice deep and steady. "This school has a reputation for excellence. My dream is to see it produce young leaders who shape not only Nigeria, but the world." His gaze swept across the hall and paused when he saw Tari. A small crack of emotion flashed in the chief's expression. Not pride. Something else. Something complicated. Amina leaned in, whispering, "Why didn't you tell me?" Tari whispered back, "Because, it's not what you think." Before she could ask more, the principal announced, "We will now invite a few students for a brief interaction with Chief Okari." Names were called. None surprised Amina, usually top students, prefects, or children of big donors. But then, Amina Yusuf, the hall shifted. She froze. Kunal's mouth dropped open. "How? You? What did you do?" Amina had no answer. She walked nervously toward the stage, feeling every eye in the hall follow her like she was trending on Twitter. Tari watched, worry shadowing his face. When she stepped onto the stage, Chief Okri studied her for a moment, calm, observant, unreadable. She greeted him respectfully. He nodded. "You are Amina." It wasn't a question. It was a recognition. "Yes, sir," she said softly. "You are the one who stood up for my son." Her breath caught. So, Tari had told him, but the chief's face didn't show anger or gratitude. It showed something else, a depth she couldn't place. "Kindness," he said slowly, "is a rare currency in this world." Amina swallowed, unsure how to respond. Then came the twist. The chief leaned slightly closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You remind me of someone I knew, a long time ago." Fear flickered in his eyes. Not hers, his. Before she could ask what he meant, the principal ushered the next student forward. Amina stepped off the stage, heart pounding. Something was off, very off, and Tari looked like he knew it too. After the event, while students crowded around the visiting VIPs, Amina slipped outside to clear her head. The air smelled like dust and fried plantain from the nearby vendors. Why her? Why had he singled her out? And why did he say she reminded him of someone? She leaned against a wall, lost in thought, until she heard footsteps behind her. It was Chief Okari. She straightened instantly. "Sir, sorry. I didn't know." "It's fine," he said. "I wanted to speak to you." Her heart kicked like a startled goat. He studied her with an expression she didn't understand. "Amina, where is your father?" She blinked, confused. "My father died when I was 8. Something shifted in his eyes. Something heavy. Something like regret or recognition. "I see," he said quietly. "And your mother? Does she still live in Ajangunal?" Amina froze. "How do you?" But before she could finish, Tari rushed toward them. "Dad," he said quickly. "There you are. Can we go?" Amina saw the panic in Tari's eyes, and the fear in his father's. Chief Okri nodded, straightened his egbata, and said, "We will talk again, Amina." "Talk again?" Then he walked away with Tari, leaving her standing under the fading afternoon sun, questions swirling like harmattan dust. Something was wrong, something big, something connected to her father, a man she barely remembered. This story was no longer just about a bullied boy. T was becoming a mystery tied to her own past. If you were Amina, would you confront Tari about what his father said, or wait and see how things unfold? That evening, Lagos looked like someone sprinkled gold dust over the city. Streetlights flickered awake. Danfo buses honked their way through traffic, and the warm smell of suya drifted through the air. But none of that touched Amina. She moved through it like a ghost. Her mind wouldn't stop replaying Chief Okri's words. "Where is your father? Your mother still lives in Ajangunal? We will talk again." Why would a billionaire, owner of one of the most expensive schools in Lagos, know anything about her family? By the time she got home, her thoughts were spiraling. Their apartment in Ajangunal was small. 2 rooms, a cramped kitchen, a balcony that creaked if you breathed too hard. But it was home, and her mother kept it spotless despite coming back from a long day of work at the hotel. "Mina baby," her mother called from the kitchen. "You're back early, oh." Amina forced a smile. "Yes, ma." Her mother looked tired, hair tied in a scarf, uniform slightly crumpled, eyes warm but drained. Amina wanted to ask. She wanted to say, "Do you know a man named Damien Okari?" But something in her stopped. Maybe fear. Maybe instinct. Instead, she said, "Mummy, did you ever know anyone rich? Like, really rich?" Her mother paused mid-stir. "Rich key? My dear, If I knew rich people, you think we would still be living here? She laughed loudly, but Amina noticed something, a flicker. A tiny, tiny hesitation, but before she could press further, her mother said, "Serve your food, Jair. You look hungry." So Amina dropped it, on the outside. Inside, the questions only grew sharper. The next morning at school, the atmosphere was buzzing with gossip about Chief Okeri's visit. Some students claimed he promised a new science lab. Others swore they saw him plotting investments with foreign partners. But Amina wasn't listening. Her eyes were on Tari. He stood alone by the staircase, chewing his bottom lip nervously. When Amina approached, he looked like he expected it, and feared it. "We need to talk," she said. He nodded, resigned. "I know." They sat at the far end of the courtyard, under a mango tree that had seen more secrets than any diary. Kids rarely came there. It was too quiet for Lagos children who were born loud. Amina crossed her arms. "Why didn't you tell me your father owns the school?" Tari sighed. "Because that's the only thing people ever see when they look at me. Money, privilege, power. Nobody sees me. I saw you," she said softly. "That's exactly why I didn't want to lose it." Amina felt her heart soften, but the bigger questions pushed through. Why did your father act strange? Why did he ask about my family? Tari hesitated. His fingers dug into his palms. "Amina, I don't know everything, but I know my dad recognized your name. When I told him what happened with Femi, he asked who defended me. When I said your name, he went quiet. Really quiet. Why? I don't know," Tari whispered, "but I think he knew someone in your family." Her pulse quickened. "My father? I'm not sure. But yesterday, after the assembly, Dad was shaken. I've never seen him like that." Amina looked away, staring at the dusty ground. "Do you think my father knew him?" Tari hesitated again, then said the words that dropped into the space between them like a stone. "My dad said, he owes your family something." Amina's breath hitched. "Owes? A billion narrowed her family? For what? Why would your father owe us anything?" she asked, almost whispering. Tari shook his head helplessly. "I don't know." Amina leaned back against the tree trunk, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Something was being woven behind her back, threads from the past pulling tight. She wasn't imagining it anymore. Her life was connected to the Okeri family in a way she didn't understand. The rest of the school day passed like a slow-moving blur. Teachers talked. Students whispered. Bells rang. But Amina's mind was far away, stuck in a memory she hadn't visited in years, a blurry image of her father, tall, broad shoulders, smelled faintly of engine oil, laughed loudly, held her on his shoulders and said, "My star girl." Then the accident. The funeral. Her mother's silent tears. Could a man like Chief Okeri have known him? After school, something unexpected happened. One of the school administrators walked straight toward Amina with a crisp white envelope. "For you," she said. Amina frowned. "From who?" The administrator simply walked away. Kunal, who had seen it all, rushed over. "Open it. Maybe they gave you scholarship. Or maybe you're in trouble. Hope you've not done anything." Amina rolled her eyes and opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a formal letter embossed with the school seal. Her hands trembled as she read. "You are invited to a private academic evaluation this Friday. You have been shortlisted for a special scholarship and mentorship program sponsored by Chief Damien Okeri." A scholarship? Sponsored by the man asking questions about her father? Kunal nearly screamed. "Mina, you don blow." But Amina didn't smile. The words at the bottom of the letter froze her blood. "Attendance is mandatory. Mandatory." As if she didn't have a choice. As if this wasn't just a scholarship. Kunal grabbed her shoulders. "Why do you look like someone stole your meat from the pot? This is a blessing." But she didn't answer him, because it didn't feel like a blessing. It felt like a summons. Later that evening, Tari messaged her. "My father asked to see you on Friday. Please, be careful." Be careful? Why would she need to be careful around a man offering her a scholarship? What was this, gratitude or something else entirely? And the biggest question, what did he think he owed her family? Amina sat on her bed, letter in one hand, phone in the other. Heart thudding like a generator under strain. Friday was coming fast, and so were the answers. If you were Amina, would you tell your mother about the scholarship letter? Or hide it until you understand what's really happening? Friday arrived with the kind of tension Lagos feels right before a storm. The sky was bright, but the air was heavy, thick enough to chew. Amina barely slept the night before. Her dreams were a blur of her father's face, Chief Okari's unreadable eyes, and the word mandatory echoing like a drumbeat. She didn't tell her mother. Something deep inside whispered that this wasn't the kind of news you share until you understand the danger. So she dressed quietly, tucked the letter into her backpack, and walked out before her mother finished tying her headscarf. The entire bus ride to school felt unreal. Noise everywhere, hawkers knocking on windows, conductors shouting destinations, gospel music booming from a speaker someone refused to replace since 2007. And yet she felt detached, floating above all of it. By the time she arrived at Starlight Heights, her stomach was twisted in knots. Tari was waiting for her at the entrance. He looked worse than she felt, eyes tired, shirt creased, hands fidgeting like he was trying to keep them from shaking. "You came," he said quietly. "I didn't have a choice." He winced. "I know. I'm sorry." Her anger softened. It wasn't his fault. But she still asked, "What exactly am I walking into, Tari?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "I can't explain, but I'll be there. I won't let anything happen to you." That sentence should have comforted her. It didn't. The evaluation wasn't in a classroom, or the admin office, or anywhere students normally went. It was in the boardroom. A place students only saw when they were in serious trouble, or when their parents came to fight for them during PTA meetings. Two security officers stood by the entrance. Kunnal's eyes bulged when he saw the scene. Wouldn't be this? Scholarship or FBI interrogation? "Go to class, Kunnal," Amina said. He didn't move. "Mina, are you sure?" "I'll be fine." He didn't believe her. She didn't believe herself. But he left anyway. Amina stepped into the room and everything changed. The boardroom smelled like polished wood and money. A massive table dominated the center, with soft leather chairs circled around it. Sunlight filtered through tall glass windows overlooking Victoria Island. Chief Damien Okari sat alone at the head of the table, waiting. He wasn't wearing Egbata today. He wore a simple charcoal suit. But that made him even more intimidating. Power didn't need decoration. Tari sat beside him, staring at the table as if it contained the answers to all of life's questions. The door closed behind Amina with a soft click that echoed louder than a gunshot. "Please," the chief said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "Sit." Amina did. Her palms were sweating. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Chief Okari folded his hands. "Amina, I want to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." She nodded, throat dry. "What was your father's full name?" Her heartbeat stumbled. Yusuf Suleiman." Chief Okari let out a long, slow breath, one that sounded like a man carrying a burden for too many years. "I thought so," he murmured. Tari looked at his father sharply. "Dad," but his father lifted a hand, stopping him. Then he looked at Amina again, and his next words changed the atmosphere of the room completely. "Your father was my friend." Amina froze. "My father?" "Yes," the chief said. "Over 20 years ago, before any of this, before the wealth, before the companies, your father saved my life." Silence swallowed the room. Amina blinked, confused. "Saved your life? How?" Chief Okari leaned back, eyes distant, as if replaying a memory he had locked away for too long. "It was during my early days as a struggling businessman. I was robbed on the 3rd Mainland Bridge late at night, left unconscious by the road. Your father, who was driving a taxi at the time, found me, carried me into his car, and drove me to the hospital. He stayed with me all night. If he hadn't stopped, I would have died." Amina's mouth parted slowly. Her father? The man who barely made enough to feed them. The man she remembered as gentle and hardworking. He saved a billionaire's life? The chief continued, voice heavy. "I tried to find him later, to repay him, to help him, but he disappeared." I was told he died in an accident years later. Amina felt tears sting her eyes. Yes, he did. The chief's expression softened with something she never expected, grief. Your father was a great man, Amina. I owe him everything. Tari watched her with set eyes. So, the chief continued quietly, when my son mentioned your name, I recognized it. And when I confirmed your mother still lived in Ajangunal, I realized the truth. I had been given a second chance to repay a debt. Amina couldn't speak. Her voice wouldn't come. She whispered, the scholarship. This isn't charity. No, he said. It's the least I can do for the daughter of the man who saved my life. She wiped her cheek quickly. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just let me do what your father never allowed me to do. For a moment, the room felt warm, hopeful. But then, the second twist the story had been waiting to reveal began to unfold. The chief leaned forward, his voice lowering. Amina, there is something else. Something I need to tell you. Amina felt the air shift again. Tari swallowed hard. The chief's next sentence sliced through the room like a blade. Your father didn't die the way you think he did. The world stopped moving. Amina stared at him, frozen. What do you mean? She whispered. The chief's jaw tightened. There was more to his death. And I believe it wasn't an accident. Amina's breath shattered. Her father's death, the tragedy that shaped her entire life, might not have been an accident. The chief looked at her with eyes heavy with truth, and I think the same men who targeted him may still be out there. Amina felt the room tilt. Tari reached for her hand, and the door behind them clicked softly. As if someone else was listening, the storm had officially begun. If you were in Amina's place, would you demand the truth immediately, or walk away until you were emotionally ready to hear it? Amina's chest rose and fell in sharp, uneven breaths. The boardroom suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too full of shadows that didn't belong to her. Her father's death had always been a wound, but a silent one, something she learned to live around. Now the chief was telling her it wasn't an accident. Her voice came out small. What happened to him? Chief Okari didn't answer immediately. His eyes flickered toward the door, as if checking whether anyone could hear. Tari squeezed Amina's hand gently, grounding her. Dad, please, tell her. The chief nodded slowly, then leaned forward. Your father was a witness, he said quietly. He saw something dangerous, and it made him a target. A witness to what? Amina whispered. The chief hesitated, choosing his words like someone picking up sharp glass. Back then, before I became who I am today, I was involved with people I shouldn't have been involved with. Investors with dirty money, partnerships I didn't fully understand. I was desperate to grow my business. And those men, he exhaled shakily, they weren't businessmen. They were criminals. The kind no one crosses. Amina's hands grew cold. One night, the chief continued, I met with them at a warehouse in Apapa. We had a disagreement. Voices were raised. Threats were made. And your father, who happened to be nearby, saw more than he should have. Amina frowned. My father? What was he doing there? He was driving a late-night taxi route. Bad timing. Wrong place. The chief's expression darkened. When they realized he had seen us, they tried to silence him. Amina felt her stomach twist. But he survived that, right? Yes. And he saved my life in the process. The chief looked pained. He pulled me out when things turned violent. Helped me escape. He risked everything for a man he barely knew. A tear slid down Amina's cheek before she could stop it. So how did he die? She whispered. What really happened? The chief hesitated again, and that silence, that pause, felt like the longest moment of her life. A week later, he finally said, the brakes on his car failed on 3rd Mainland Bridge. Amina's breath stilled. Her mother had always said it was a tragic accident. Bad luck. Mechanical failure. Something random and cruel. But now, the chief lowered his gaze. It wasn't random. Amina's voice cracked. Are you saying someone killed my father? The chief lifted his chin slowly. I believe so. And I believe it was because of me. The words hit her like a blow to the chest. A chill ran down her spine. The room felt colder. Her vision swam. Tari moved closer, alarmed. Amina, breathe, please. But Amina couldn't breathe. Not properly. The weight of everything, her father's death, her mother's struggles, all the years she spent believing fate had simply been cruel, came crashing down. You knew, she said faintly. All these years. You knew something happened to him. I suspected, the chief said quietly. But I had no proof. And those men, they had powerful connections. If I spoke, they would have silenced me too. Anger rose in Amina's chest. Hot, sharp, uncontrollable. So you stayed silent, she said. You let us suffer. The chief flinched like she had slapped him. I regret it every day, he said, voice breaking for the first time. I didn't know how to come forward without putting you and your mother in more danger. But now, those men have resurfaced. They're involved in new deals. Dangerous ones. And I believe they've started watching me again. Amina stiffened. Watching you? Yes. And if they discover the connection between me and your father's family, his voice dropped to a whisper. You could be in danger too. The room spun. Everything was too much, too fast. Amina pushed her chair back abruptly. I need air. She stumbled out of the boardroom before anyone could stop her. The hallway outside was empty, eerily empty. Morning sunlight stretched across the tiled floor, warm but not comforting. Amina leaned against the wall, trying to steady herself. Her father was killed. Killed because he tried to help a man who went on to become unbelievably rich. Killed while she and her mother scraped and struggled through life. The anger swelled again. She wiped her eyes aggressively, then she heard footsteps behind her. Amina, it was Tari. She turned away, ashamed of the tears on her face. Just leave me for now. I won't, he said gently. Not when you're hurting. She shook her head. You shouldn't even be involved. This is between your father and mine. No, Tari said firmly. This is between us. You and me. We're friends. And I'm not leaving. His words softened something inside her, but before she could respond, a slow, deliberate clap echoed through the hallway. They both turned. A man leaned against the far wall. Tall, dressed in an expensive suit, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Another man stood beside him, arms crossed. Strangers, but not harmless ones. Tari immediately stiffened. Amina, stay behind me. The man in the suit chuckled. Relax, boy. We're only here to talk. Amina's pulse jumped. Who are you? She demanded. The man smiled wider. Friends of your father. The way he said father made her skin crawl. Tari stepped forward, voice shaking but brave. This is private property. You shouldn't be here. Oh, we go where we like, the man said. Especially when someone starts digging into old memories. Amina felt dread curl in her stomach. These were the men the chief feared. The men who killed her father. And now they were here. The man's eyes locked onto Amina. Your father was a stubborn man, he said softly. I hope you're smarter. Tari grabbed her hand, pulling her back. Footsteps thundered down the hallway as security rushed toward them, and the two men slipped away like shadows disappearing into the sun. Amina's knees nearly buckled. This was no longer about the past. The danger was here, now, in her school, and running was no longer an option. If you were Amina, would you leave the school immediately, or stay and confront the truth about your father no matter the danger? The rest of that day moved like a Lagos bus trapped in traffic, slow, tense, unpredictable. Security swept the school, teachers whispered in corners, and rumors spread like wildfire. But through all the noise, one truth stayed sharp in Amina's mind. The men who killed her father had found her. And they weren't done. She tried to focus through her classes, but every shadow felt suspicious. Every unfamiliar adult looked dangerous. By closing time, her nerves were stretched thinner than cheap chewing gum. Tari found her outside the school gate. We can't let you go home alone, he said quietly. A black SUV, smaller than the one she'd seen before, waited behind him. My dad wants to speak to you again. Somewhere safe. Amina hesitated. Part of her wanted to run home, lock the door, pretend none of this was happening. But she already knew too much. Running wouldn't save her. Okay, she whispered. She got into the car. They drove to a gated property in Ikoyi, quiet neighborhood, leafy streets, guards who looked like they could carry cars for exercise. The house wasn't flashy, just elegant, calm, safe. At least on the surface. Inside, Chief Okari paced the living room like a man at war with his own thoughts. He stopped when he saw Amina. "Are you hurt?" he asked immediately. "No," she said, "but they spoke to me." The chief's face hardened. "What did they say?" "That my father was stubborn, and they hope I'm smarter." Something inside him cracked. She saw it. Fear, guilt, anger, all tangled together. "They're making a move," he said. "I knew it would happen eventually, but I didn't think they'd come this close." "Who are they?" Amina asked, her voice stronger now. "I want the full truth. All of it." The chief nodded slowly, as if accepting a weight he'd avoided for too long. "There were 3 of them," he said. "Investors who looked legitimate from the outside, Deepwater Holdings. But the money behind them was laundering, illegal trade, violence. They were using my company as a front without my knowledge." Amina's eyebrows drew together. "But when you found out, I tried to back out," he said. "And that's when they became dangerous." Tari sat beside Amina, watching silently. "They threatened me," the chief continued. "Warned me not to expose them. Your father overheard part of that argument. They assumed he overheard all of it." Amina's hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from a burning clarity awakening inside her. "So they killed him," she said. The chief bowed his head. "Yes, and I have lived with that guilt every day." Amina didn't cry this time. There were no tears left, only resolve. "So what now?" she asked quietly. Before the chief could answer, his phone buzzed sharply. He glanced at the screen, and his expression changed so fast it made Amina's pulse spike. "They found something," he said. "The security team. Evidence." Tari stood. "Evidence of what?" The chief lifted his eyes to Amina. "Evidence that your father wasn't just a witness. He kept something from them. Something they've been searching for all these years." Amina blinked. What could my father possibly have? Chief Okari took a deep breath. "A recording." The room fell silent. "A recording of that night in the warehouse," he said. "Of the threats, the criminal deals, everything." Amina's heart thudded loudly. "My father recorded them?" "Yes." The chief nodded. "He hid it deep, and those men never found it." "Where is it now?" Amina asked. "That," the chief said heavily, "is the question." Amina leaned back slowly, mind racing. Her father had died protecting a secret, and those men were still searching for it. But why were they resurfacing now? What changed? She asked. The chief hesitated. "My company is merging with an international partner next month. If the deal goes through, everything about Deepwater Holdings will be audited, including old records. If that recording surfaces during the audit, it ruins them." Amina finished. The chief nodded. "Exactly." Amina took a slow, steady breath. "So they came after me, thinking I might have it?" "They're desperate," the chief said. "And dangerous when desperate." Silence stretched between them. Then, softly, Tari said, "Dad, we have to protect her." "We will," the chief said. Then he turned to Amina. "You have a home here. Until this is resolved." Amina shook her head gently. "My mother, she'll be protected too," he said. "I'll send security tonight." Amina stared at him, this powerful man who owed his life to her father, who was now trying to repay that debt, and suddenly, she felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not anger, but purpose. "My father hid that recording," she said slowly, "but he didn't hide things randomly. He was intentional. If we find out where he kept important things, we might find it." Tari leaned forward. "Where? Would he hide something like that?" Amina thought about her childhood, their tiny apartment, her father's quiet rituals, places he touched every day, the little wooden box he kept under the bed, the cracked radio he refused to throw away, the notebook he wrote in every night before sleeping. The memory hit her like lightning. "The toolbox," she whispered. Tari blinked. "What?" "My father had a metal toolbox," she said quickly. "He carried it everywhere, even when he wasn't working. My mom said he kept important things in there, things he didn't want to lose." The chief's eyes widened. "Do you still have it?" he asked. Amina nodded. "It's in our house, under my mother's bed." The chief stood abruptly. "We're going there, now." Amina felt a knot form in her chest. Fear, yes, but also something fierce and determined. This was her father's last message, his final piece of truth, and she was ready to hear it. They left immediately, 3 cars, heavy security, tension thick in the air. As they sped toward Ajangunal, Amina stared out the window, watching the city blur by. The streets she grew up in, the life her father left behind, the secret he died protecting. When they reached the apartment, Amina's mother stood at the doorway, startled by the convoy of cars and guards. "Mina, what is happening?" Amina hugged her tightly. "Mummy, I'll explain. But right now, we need the toolbox." Her mother stiffened, and right there, right in the doorway, came the third and final twist. Her mother whispered, almost trembling, "Amina, I destroyed that toolbox years ago. Your father told me to." The world froze. Before Amina could process the words, her mother added, "Because what was inside it, he said it could get you killed," and everything went silent. If you were Amina, would you demand your mother reveal everything immediately, or would you brace yourself before hearing the final truth?
Thank you for watching all the way through. If this story moved you, the next one will surprise you in ways you won't expect. Go ahead and click the video on your screen. Your next story awaits.